You Be the Judge podcast show. Welcome along this week, guys. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Eternal Kurt. He is from New Zealand and he has had an OBE, out of body experience, while taking some mushrooms. Now he joins us today and is here to tell us all about it. Thank you for being our guest and welcome to the You Be the Judge podcast show, Kurt.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So, if you don't mind, let's start from the time leading up to your OBE. Give us a bit of a background on, what you were doing before you had this experience.
Okay, so it was in 2010. I was 23 years old at the time. I was living in Wellington with a couple of friends. I worked at a bar. I was doing security and bar back. And I'd been over in Australia before that. I'd been getting into a lot of trouble over in Australia. I was very reckless. I was lonely. I'd fallen out of contact with my entire family. I hadn't spoken to my parents and my grandparents well over a year. And like in our culture, we're really tight. So I was kind of not doing, not upholding my end of that. And I had fallen out with even a lot of my cousins as well. So everyone my age too. I just had been socializing with the people that I was with in Australia. Prior to that, 2 years prior to 2010, I had a big breakup with my ex-girlfriend. I had cheated multiple times. I'd been sleeping on couches well over a year with different friends in different cities. And eventually, because of that, I ended up getting into like the underbelly of, life and getting into the underworld, crime and all that. I was working at the bar in Wellington in 2010. I was attracting clients into that underworld, and basically it was a front. My whole life up to that, I was pretty selfish. I was really angry, hoha, that my life wasn't going anywhere, and not knowing what to do about changing it and, making the steps. So I was blaming everybody, blaming myself. So one Sunday night in 2010 in Wellington, my neighbor randomly asked if we were willing to swap some drugs for mushrooms. And we were like, yeah, definitely, because it's our neighbor. And so he handed him some drugs and he exchanged me a big bag of mushrooms. It's probably like that big, huge bag of frozen mushrooms. Now, he said that it was blue caps, and we didn't care. We're just, you're just helping the brother out and stuff. And because we were kind of like an all-in type group, you only go 100%. We decided to just take the whole bag that night because we didn't want to have it in the freezer. And we just thought, no, we'll just do all of it. And it was over 200 mushrooms. And so we boiled the mushrooms in a broth with tea, and the broth started going black. It looked really, really potent, yes. And it looked like little balls with little trunks on it. I didn't know at the time that they were called Wiri mushroom. And I don't know if our ancestors or the tōpunga took it back in the day, but they have been on, I think they were on the Deadlands, on the movie The Deadlands. So it was when the young boy and the taniwha was taking them to communicate to his ancestors and, you know, in the other world. And, you know, they're only taking maybe 2 or 3. And we ate 200 of them. So that was pretty wild. And given the nature of my life at that time, I was very reckless. So even if it killed me, I didn't care. I didn't even think of it. I just thought, well, I'll just take them. And so we strained the broth, and then we used the rest of the mushrooms and we chopped them up on the chopping board to put it in a tomato soup. So we wanted to eat the whole thing, boil it, take the mushrooms, put it into tomato soup. Now, when I was on the chopping board, when we were chopping it up, the chopping board actually went black. It was like Indian ink. So it was, yeah, it stained the chopping board. I think we actually threw out that chopping board because we couldn't get it out. And on the wooden chopping board, yeah. And so we had put it into this tomato soup, and we put it in these big jugs full of this broth. Cheers to the brother, because I had another brother that my flatmate actually, he did it with me. But I'm not going to talk about him because, you know, like I don't want to get him into trouble or anything like that. Like, but anyway, we both took the broth, and then we ate the tomato soup on with some toast, and then we I went into the lounge, and I decided to put on the video game and play some Tiger Woods golf, just to, you know, chill the vibe, and honestly, it came up within about 10 minutes after taking it. Now, what happened during that time was the video game started glitching. And I was thinking, what's going on? And then I hit the golf ball. And if you know from like Dragon Ball Z, Goku and his stick, power pole extends, the golf stick just kept extending with the ball when I hit it. And immediately when that happened, I completely teleported somewhere else, and I didn't know what was going on. And I didn't know what to expect because it was the first time that I'd ever done some sort of psychedelic mushroom. I'd never done anything like that my whole life. I was a good boy, you know, I never did drugs or anything. I only drank, had the beers on the weekend and all that. But yeah, that was the first time I ever had the mushroom, and I didn't know how powerful it really was. So when I vanished, I found myself in a white art gallery. So I wasn't in my house anymore in Wellington. I was in kind of like a Matrix. You know how like Morpheus, and he's like takes him to the white room. Yeah, so I found myself in this white art gallery. Everything was white. The chairs were white, and I was in this white art gallery, and right in front of me were 2 people that I knew exactly who they were. One of them was a famous artist that I had seen when I was younger in like magazines and stuff, because I was interested in like art and culture growing up. And one of those artists was this New York artist named Keith Haring. If you've ever known who Keith Haring is, he's, you know, kind of in that hip hop, in the 80s, and hip hop with Jean-Michel Basquiat and all that kind of stuff. So he was there. And even though I had no, you know, interest or connection to Keith Haring or anything like that, he was there. And I knew exactly who he was. And I was like, wow. But the guy next to him, oh my gosh, he was Maori, and he had his tamoko carved into his face, and he looked authentic. He had the korowai with the mocha. He had the big feet and had the hair tied up with the comb. And I said to him, "Who are you?" And he said to me, he didn't even speak, he was talking telepathically. So he's smiling at me and he goes, "You know who I am. I'm Maui." And I was absolutely baffled because I didn't know who it was. I was, processing this at the time because I was thinking, is this Maui from the old school, like Peter Gossage children's books, the books that you grew up reading? Or was this one of many different types of Maui? Like, was it the Loki Maui? Was it the god of trickery? Was it the childhood superhero? So I had deep respect and, love for Maui. So when he said that to me, I was really just absolutely blown away. While this was happening in real life, I grabbed like a vivid and I started drawing a circle on my hand, thinking that once I press it onto my face, I will have a tamoko, I have some sort of kind of takarangi shape on my face. And I did it twice. And so for some reason, while I was, envisioning this art gallery, and I was actually there, like it was a memory. It's embedded in my memory. I can see it now. It was like I was there. So while that was happening in the real world, I had picked up a vivid and I started drawing a kuru on my hand and imprinting it on my face and basically trying to become one with this Māori person that was in front of me, Keith Haring, no, I wasn't interested in him. I just had deep respect for him and that's cool. But, I was more interested in Maui and being like, Maui, And so I was doing that. And then woke up and I woke up on the ground and my mate's girlfriend, she was on, because we had a public computer in our lounge at the time. So she was, watching YouTube or doing something on there, which I think she was watching Skins, something like that at the time. And I woke up and I was going to her, I was going, "Water, can I have some water, please?" I was lying down on the carpet going, "Water." And she looked at me and she went, "Okay." And she got me some water. But when she got closer and closer, she realized, she goes, "What have you done to your face?" And she cracked up laughing. And I looked at my hand, and instead of seeing this perfect symmetrical circle on my hand, I'd seen all this little squiggles, and I'd actually made a huge mess, and my face was all smudged and everything. And she was laughing, cracking up, and for me, I didn't know what was going on because I just had teleported from this art gallery in seen Maui to being completely fatigued. I was completely, well, I suppose you would say, obliterated from taking it. So my conscious was normal and I was talking and I was doing things, but in reality, I was an absolute mess on the ground, very, very lethargic, blank, blacking out, going in and out of consciousness. And she'd put the cup of water just by my head while I was lying down, and she got me a pillow from the couch. So she'd rested the pillow on my head. And then immediately after that, I blacked out again. And this time around was the out-of-body experience.
Wow, that was such an amazing experience, especially you talking about your personal life leading up to the experience in itself. So, have you told your family of your OBE, considering your path at that time? And if so, how did they respond?
Well, that's not the OBE. That was the I suppose the entering of what was happening. I haven't told you the OBE yet, which is unreal. But yes, I have definitely told both my parents about it, and because I was trying to get answers about what happens afterwards. But yep, I have definitely told my parents the story, and I don't think that they were impressed, but definitely did tell them. Yeah.
Now, how real was Maui, and what did Maui look like?
I don't know how real any of it was. It looked extremely real. I was there. There was a man in front of me. He was not taller than me, so he was just maybe a little bit shorter than me. He definitely looked very authentic. Like he had that Tahitian look to him as well traveled. He looked quite, I suppose, happy that someone from, I suppose, the modern age was there, and he was definitely very humble and no quick movements or anything, just very, very like stayed very still, hands korowai on.
Considering that we are living in the Matrix, how real was the reality you were in compared to this reality?
It was as real as the reality. It was basically kind of like a dream where you fall asleep and then you wake up again, and like you wake up in an entirely new place, and the place that you wake up in, you are fully conscious, you've got high energy. So in real world I was quite lethargic, and I was suffering from, I suppose, the afflictions of the broth of the 200 Aotearoa mushrooms. But yeah, when I was crossing over into the other side, I was just normal. It was more like you know, because you have no pain or anything like that, no worries. You don't worry about the real world or your problems or anything like that. It was just like a completely refreshed me being in this new world, and very humbled to see another Māori person there. Well, both people, because they were the only people there. It was like a completely empty. I don't know. It looked kind of like a white version of the Louvre. It was white on white Louvre, and I don't know why those two were together, but yeah, they were there. Yep.
Now, why do you think you were at an art gallery? Is it something in the past that you've wanted to go in personally, or you've had some connection with art?
I think so. Even though it wasn't relevant to my life at that time, let alone any time, I think it still might have been an interest. It was more like because I'd seen Maui and Keith Haring, I'd been interested in Keith Haring's art, and I'd always respected Maui and kind of seen him as, the Hercules or the Superman of our culture. And then the art gallery, I suppose, is a humble place, and it's quiet, and you learn all types of things through just seeing people's expressions and art forms and art pieces. It's like it's like a library in a way, but it's visually for stimulating for the mind, and it allows your mind to go to different places when you're interpreting the pictures. So I think that was maybe like a place for me to be able to begin my OBE. Kind of like, going into like an art gallery where you see a painting, it changes you, and you think about things differently after you leave. Even if you're not interested in art, you've learned something, and you may have seen something that might interest you. So I think like it was a really good platform to begin the next phase of that OBE.
Do you think you accessed your pineal gland through your third eye?
Maybe it may have awoken, and all that kind of rich culture and art might have, the starting point, finally getting the gears going. So when I first came out of consciousness and I was like in the room and asking my flatmate for the water, and I was trying to be a part of it and trying to have a tamoko too by drawing squiggles on my face and enjoying it quite, it just looked really bad. And yeah, when I blacked out again, and that the next part of the story, that is, I suppose that's the big, I think that's why we're all here, right? It's just to hear the OBE part. That part was unreal.
Now we all want to hear your main OBE, so spill the beans, give it to us.
So when I was on the ground and I was going, water, and my bro's girlfriend put the water down and put the pillow down to get me a little bit comfortable, I blacked out again. This time, I left my body. It was like a little orb, kind of looking down at myself lying on the ground, and then I looked over at the bro's girlfriend, and I started floating higher and higher up to the ceiling, and then I went through the ceiling and went outside. And as soon as I could hear that difference between being inside and hearing like skins on the computer, and couldn't hear me or anything, but as soon as I made that transition to the outside, through the roof and through the installation, and then as soon as I got to the outside, it was that orange light, at nighttime, all that like public light, and I could hear the cars, and I could hear like beeps and things, and it just sounded like you were floating above the house. And I was like, I didn't care what was happening. I was just in the zone, like in the orb zone, just floating. And I kept getting higher and higher, but I was looking down at the same time, and being nosy, and I wasn't really moving anywhere. I was just kind of levitating up as an orb, and I could hear an ambulance come, getting closer and closer, and I was like, oh no, what's going on? And then I saw the lights and the siren, like the flashing lights, and it was right in front of our house. And I was just like, uh-oh, what is happening? On one end, I'm just in the zone. I'm just like, oh, wow, detached from reality, detached from everything, just in that vibe of being a drone, basically, floating around looking at. And then as soon as I saw that ambulance come in, at the same time, I could hear like the EMT and the walkie-talkies and stuff coming up the stairs and knock on the door at the house. And my bro's girlfriend, she was crying and telling the EMT, she can't wake me up and stuff. So simultaneously, I could feel what was going on, and I started floating down back into seeing everything. And I basically saw the EMT, everybody pick me up and put me on a stretcher. And then from then on, I was kind of like Grand Theft Auto, like hovering over my unconscious body. And so I was put into an ambulance, and they couldn't revive me. anything at all. And then eventually I was pronounced dead in the hospital, still above my lifeless body, you know. And they put me, they stripped all my clothes off, and they put me in a bag, and then put me into a room full of other dead bodies. And at the same time, I could hear them call my family, each one. And it was quite difficult at that time because my flatmates didn't have anything, you know, I didn't have much information, I didn't have anything. So it was kind of like ringing random people to eventually get to my family. And so I had to actually experience hearing everybody's reactions, and my mum, my dad, my grandparents on both sides. And whilst I was still, my body was still in Wellington. And so first people to come and see, to identify my body was my dad and my grandfather. And it definitely destroyed my grandfather. He was very gutted, and I had to see it. My dad, on the other hand, I suppose the anger and, you know, like just how I've overdosed from taking drugs, the disappointment in Dad's eyes, and he couldn't be sad. He was just very angry and disappointed. Whereas his father, my grandfather, who's a very, very strong man and is very high up in the military, was, you know, in his life, he was absolutely just grief-stricken and crying so bad, you know, and it was torturous having to see this. And it was like time had stopped too. So it was like, I actually felt like that moment, that OBE lasted for weeks. And so like I had to go through the process of even driving, like the body being put into the hearse and going to the funeral home, and having to be dressed for, you know, in the process of going through that. And at the same time, it was, you know, there's me thinking, oh, I don't want to be dressed in that, you know, when it's putting me into a suit and all that. And, oh, I don't want to be at this church. Oh, I don't want, you know, I didn't like any of it. And I had to see all my family and see all my cousins cry, and just realize about how much everyone really, really loved me and missed me, you know. And so, and just seeing just people that I never thought would actually absolutely be devastated just cry and throw themselves on the coffin and everything. It was terrible. So I had to go and watch my own tangi. And then, at the funeral home, they put me in the crematorium, so I had to watch that too. And as soon as that all happened, and the whole time I was still that orb above this lifeless body, having to watch everything, and I had to feel everybody's pain, and I had to watch myself going to the crematorium. So that was really, really hard. And then as soon as that happened, I came out of consciousness again. I came into consciousness again, and I was looking down, and this time I was naked, and I was standing on lava, and I looked around and I realized I was inside a big volcano. This time, like standing inside a massive, massive volcano, and I could feel the heat and everything, but my feet weren't burning or anything. And I don't know if I was standing on lava or might have been on like, just like a ground inside the lava pit, but I was butt naked and looking around, and I didn't know what was going on. And at the same time, I was like, I was like, oh my God, I'm out of that OBE and like I don't have to experience it anymore. And, you know, like I'm back to myself again, like I'm conscious again. But I woke up inside a massive volcano. And 2 minutes later, I looked in front of me and no word, no, like honestly, like right in front of me was probably a 3-story red giant muscly devil, big red muscly. And when I mean muscly, I mean like this dude's taking roids, he's doing everything, you know, like what someone kind of like what gluttony would be, but with like training and like, you know, fully roided up. And he had big horns and he was naked too. And he had a giant glaive, like a big giant sword that was like way bigger than me. And looking at me, breathing real bad, like he was going, like he was there, like I was there to be basically destroyed. And I had nothing. I was naked and I had nothing. And I was terrified. Like I was absolutely terrified. Like I was so scared. The first time in my whole life that I've ever been terrified. And knowing my fate, knowing everything that was happening. And instead of doubting and, you know, like really just accepting it, even though I had no weapon, and this dude's like 3 stories high, he's a big giant, big red giant, naked, wore like a big glaive, big giant great sword that's the size of like I suppose 2 stories. Imagine a sword that's 2 stories, like long, massive. You can see like the cutting end of it. It's just nice and shiny and stuff. So as soon as I saw that, and I was so scared, instead of cowarding, I went, come on then. Yeah, let's go. And I started feeling this kind of strength. It was like, as I died before, now I was reborn. And instead of being this reckless, well, still reckless, but it was like I had control of it, you know, but like now I had this control. And now I was facing basically like my demons, but instead of cowering and walking with them and giving into that, I was actually like trying to challenge it, and I was willing to take it on. And I was like, come on. And then as soon as that happened, I woke up again. And I woke up in the lounge in Wellington, and my head was still on the pillow. Cup was still next to me, filled. I didn't drink it or anything at all. My bro's missus had already gone to bed, so she was gone. And I stood up and I was in this daze. Everything's like glowing and, you know, like pulsating, all the lights, and I can hear all the plugs and stuff, all the electricity, just this little like hum. And I go to the computer to see what the time was, and I think I was only gone for about maybe 40 minutes to an hour. So I'd only experienced my death, and it felt like honestly a lifetime. It felt like so long. And then I was in that crater with that big red demon thing, and I tried to take it on, and I think that moment was only maybe, I would say, only like 2 to 5 minutes. But then when I woke up, I was only out of consciousness for that time, only for like 45 minutes. And so after it, I went into the bathroom, I cleaned my face, I got all that stuff off my face. I hopped into bed, I I refused to open my eyes because everything was still kind of vibe, like it was quite like humming, and the lights were just kind of flashing and stuff like that. So I managed to get some sleep. I actually had maybe like 10 hours sleep, and I woke up the next day, and I felt like that old me was gone. That person, that who I was, like why I was living in Wellington, why I was working at the bar, why I got into the underworld, me not being with my family and stuff, being away from them, that was all gone. I wanted to like clear that up big time. So like I quit my job a week later. I went to the bar and told my boss, I'm out of here. I said, don't worry about putting me on work or anything. Like, I'm happy to help you guys out for free. Just don't worry about it, but I'm quitting. So life's not for me anymore. I told all my friends, and they were all like, good. You know, I told my mates that I was living with, being like, I'm moving back to up north. I'm going to live with my grandparents. I want to like reconnect with them and look after them, you know. So at the time I was only 23, and, you know, I, like a month after that experience, I moved back up to the East Coast. That's where my family's from. They're all like Ngāti Kahungunu. So I went back up to Kahungunu, and I quit drinking. I quit smoking. I actually lived with my grandparents and looked after them. And I did that for about 2 years until I was about 25. And then after that, I went to university and I did graphics design, and I worked at Wiri Workshop, back down in Wellington again. I studied civil engineering as well, so I became an engineer. And I left high school in 7th form, but I hadn't completed NCA level 3, because and you need level 3 to get into uni. And so like I completed that again. I did like night courses and got my level 3, got into civil engineering, specifically geotechnical engineering. So that's kind of like making sure that oil pipelines and things are well looked after, and you're just trying to be a kaitiaki and try and find the best way to transport all of that stuff, you know. And that's what I really wanted to get into, is try and get into the oil industry and basically try and better it. But you know, like through those experiences, I actually became a musician, and then I became a DJ too, and just started actually living life and looking after my family and just being integrated into that, as well as getting into Te Ao Māori and learning about rongoa Māori, and just learning tikanga and my family's whakapapa, and you know, like it's a bit unfair to say that it was because of that experience, but I don't know where I would be had I not experienced that. And for something that I think, you know, 200 mushrooms would actually kill someone. Maybe, I'm not sure. Usually people take about 10 to 20, but, you know, we went 200. My bro, who also took it, like I'll keep him anonymous, but he definitely leveled up too, and he was working at the bar, and also, so, and then he left, and then he moved over to Indonesia, and Maori. He's Maori bro too, but he works over in Indonesia, putting retaining walls up in mines and things like that. So a job that he used to do when he was about 16 years old. He because he worked down in Queenstown putting retaining walls up around like gorges and things, those big long wires. Well, he ended up doing that over in Indonesia and overseas too, working for the mining companies. So he definitely got out and did something with his life also, you know, like we could have stayed in the hospo working in the bar for the rest of our life, like Cheers or something, you know. But we definitely just leveled up and or that old me died, and then when I was reborn and I was strong enough to face that big giant red dude, it was like in a way a metaphor to now challenge, like live life and be able to you know, like not be scared or anything like that, and not feel alone. And also because seeing a big red guy with horns made me realize that he's got his creator, and because I was an atheist before that, and then I became spiritual and understanding that there is a creator and that someone created him, you know, and that all that comes together, and then you've got God. So I became definitely awakened to God's existence, and since then, my connection with God is just it's awesome. You know, like now He protects me and my family, and yeah, you know, like we live a really good life now. Definitely never ever have gone back to the mushrooms. I do not advocate for that kind of OBE, because, you know, like either I'm a descendant of mental toughness, or that was just, you know, my my wake up call, and having that rebirth has definitely allowed me to be the complete opposite of what I was. I'm definitely a people person, and you know, now fast forward to now, my wife and I are married, and got a little baby girl on the way in October, and we both manage a hotel or motel, a lodge, which you'll be coming to.
I'll be looking forward to that, coming down there and spending some time with you. Your experience of this second OBE, your main OBE, is very intricate and amazing. Um, and I just wanted to ask you a few more questions. Now, you saw your death and your funeral. So, how did you feel about seeing your body and the condition it was in? Did you have any sympathy for the body, or was it just like, you know, you just thrown a jacket on the chair and that's over there? Or how did you see your body?
I definitely saw the stages of when you die. You know, I saw that mate, and I just thought to myself, oh man, like I hated it. I hated seeing the, just, I suppose, the slow decay, and then at the same time with the funeral home doing all the, I suppose, the embalming and all the things, you know, that was just terrible. Just seeing my body be, I suppose, abused. Like I just thought it was abuse, you know. And I thought also because of nature taking its course that was even harsh reality, you know. And seeing myself, my you know, like I don't have wrinkles or anything like that. But like just seeing that kind of back then, like seeing that decay, that was just, yeah, that was definitely eye-opening, and I couldn't do anything. I just had to go with the flow and not give in to, you know, I suppose believing that this is it or anything. I just had to, that was my punishment, I suppose, like just to see everybody's grief and seeing my body and seeing, especially seeing the funeral and how, you know, you kind of want to have control of what's happening with, you know, how you dressed and where you want to have your tonguey and stuff like that. And just to see that I had no choice, and just to see this, like, in a way, like a no frills funeral, and seeing that disappointment on my family's faces, you know, because it's not a it's not a funeral or a bereavement that you want to go through, especially if it's caused by taking 200 mushrooms, let alone just taking drugs in general and overdosing, you know. That disappointment on all my whānau, and seeing that they can't actually grieve, and that, you know, seeing that it was, you know, in some way like a waste of my life, that I just wasted it, you know. That was really like hurtful, and yeah, it was very, very tough seeing that.
Do you think what you experienced was a negative timeline of you being on that reckless path if you continued on it?
I think so. I think it was definitely like my wife, she said to me just before that it could have been like a alternative reality, you know, like simultaneously showing me what would happen had I been on that pathway. And at that time, because I suppose I couldn't come to terms with anything. I didn't tell anybody for a long time after that happened. I had to really come to that conclusion that I had experienced. If I looked on the internet and I found out that it's called an ego death, that your former self, or your, you know, or how proud or how you rep yourself, you know, how that just is absolutely eviscerated, and that you start again. You start again, and that old person of who you are, that's gone, you know.
What was your perspective like as an orb? Did you have 360 perspective, vision? How did it feel?
It was definitely like a drone. I became a little drone, um, without hearing the sounds of the fans or anything like that, you know, from the drone. I could definitely have a look and see. I think I looked up to see also if there was like a white at the top or anything like that, and there wasn't. It was just clouds and stars. You know, it was just normal. It was just kind of like you're outside, but you're like above, probably about. I was probably about five stories high, just slowly floating up, and um, that was really cool. Definitely a really, really awesome experience. Like, because I'd never known anything prior to that. I didn't even know that you could leave your body. I didn't even believe that kind of stuff. You know, like I just would think if anyone said that, oh, you're nuts. And then like here I am going through this like nutty experience and realizing that, wow, like you can do this, like you can OBE. And that's when I first found out about that. And I'd be a bit shameful about it, you know, when I heard that other people had OBEs, I just thought, oh man, well, I don't know if mine like counts as an OBE because, you know, I was just quite embarrassed about my experience of going through that. But yeah, at the same time, I was like, I realized that this was like a phenomenon, I don't know what you would call it, like a divine intervention.
Do you think the volcano was the furnace of hell while you were facing that demon? And what did the demon say, or did it say anything at all?
Just breathing, like you could hear this deep, kind of slow breathing from him. It was definitely a him because, yeah, I knew I had this feeling that this was it, at the time that this is my fate and that I'm here. And, you know, like, you know how like in that movie, if you've seen it, The One, with Jet Li and his bad self at the end, he gets teleported to that prison universe. He's like still hearty, being like, yeah, I'll take all you guys on, you know? That's like how I felt. I felt like if I'm going to have to dance with this dude and have a scrap in the volcano, then so be it, you know? Yeah.
How real was it there in that volcano? Could you feel the heat?
Yep, definitely. Could feel the heat. Everywhere was hot. So freaking hot. So I was glad I was kind of one end naked. Because if I had any clothes on that, I'd probably take it off anyway, you know. I don't know where, like I can't compare any volcano on Earth. You know, I could just say that it's just a combination of all what a volcano would be like, you know, especially one that's just got lots of magma and lava everywhere. It was really hot. It was quite red, like the lava was quite like bright, and I can just remember seeing, I suppose, the concrete, oh well, you know, the rock and stuff was black. It wasn't like obsidian, but it was just very, very dark. And I don't remember seeing the sky there because I think I was so deep in the volcano that, you know, and because there's this big red guy in front of me, you know, I was more fixated on staying alive or, you know, like just absolutely scared at the same time.
Did you meet any other beings there besides this demon?
No, I didn't meet any other beings. I didn't feel that. I just that one creature, you know. Didn't get a vibe that there was other people there. I just knew that there was just that one creature there. The OBE, prior to that, with my having to go through my death and stuff, I think the entire time I was waiting for something to happen. Like I was waiting for either God to intervene or something to happen. So because I just didn't want to go through it, I was having to watch everything happen. And I was like, oh, just thinking like I suppose my orb, because I was still an orb in that OBE, you know, I was still above my body. I didn't have control on looking around to travel around or anything like that. But it was more that time I was fixed to my body. So just above my body, enough to see everything around. Still, like I couldn't really do anything. And I think at one point when my body was being taken from Wellington to another town, that I thought that I could fly around, travel around, but it seemed like, it was like I kept getting pulled back to my body. Like, nope, you've got to watch this,
What was that inner strength you had? Was it something similar to like in the Matrix 1 at the end when Neo finally realizes like he dies and then he kind of rebirths and becomes this invincible person in the Matrix? Is that kind of how you felt on your rebirth or anywhere in hell when you were like taking on that demon?
Yeah, I was really shocked because I felt like at the same time I was scared, terrified, accepting everything, accepting my fate. But even though I was scared, I still fought against it. So it was like I could kind of have this total control of, even though I'm scared, I'm prepared. I'm going to go forward and carry on what needs to, if this guy wants to fight, then I'm going to have to fight him too. And I don't know why I was going, come on, and trying to flaunt it. But at the same time, I was still quite impressed, going, oh, wow, I didn't know I was capable of doing that, oh, wow. Nothing on this earth, I suppose, could be as intimidating as seeing that. But for me to be able to step up and still, retain my rebelliousness of who I, me, still being me, that was cool.
What were the lessons from this OBE?
At first, after it happened, I thought it was punishment for taking mushrooms. I thought it was a bad trip. Quitting my job definitely helped because I couldn't, because it was in memory. It was so embedded as reality to me that I had to really put my life at that time on standby. I was like, no, I've got to really heal myself now and figure out this stuff. So I was going online and trying to figure out, because I didn't want to say, oh, I had a bad trip, because I literally had control and I was able to do whatever I wanted to do while I was in that state and experiencing that stuff. And it wasn't like a dream or like a roller coaster ride where I don't control it. It was like I was the whirlwind, and I knew if I could go forward, then I'd go forward. If I wanted to go back, I'd go back. So I had control of, I suppose, how I moved around and stuff. And, it took years, I suppose, to just really figure out, what's going on. Because as soon as it happened, I still had to go and work. I still had to pay bills, whilst having, the experience of now knowing, oh, I've got to be with my family too, So while I was doing that and being this new me, this better version of me, I was still fathoming it, and I didn't go to counselling or anything like that. It wasn't that hard out because, you can tell the system, oh, I need counselling for my bad trip, and they're just going to give you pills and keep you in the matrix. Here's blue pills. And so my life and stepping forward every single day, being that change that I wanted to be, and now finally getting all my tickets and things and filling up my kite with everything that I need to be as a, I suppose, a 23-year-old. You know, I would say that I became a man, even though I looked like a man back then. I really wasn't, and I was actually ready to become more. You know, so it was like over time I started to realize how much I grew from that experience.
Have you had any more OBEs since your first one?
Weirdly enough, yes and no. So I had it with my wife before we got married. And it was something it was more like an internal kind of, I suppose, like, it didn't leave my body. It kind of went inside my mind, and it was like me and my wife both experiencing the same thing. And I asked her, I was like, are you merging with me at the same time? Because we felt like we were both kind of becoming one whilst flying in the sky. It was quite beautiful. And I said to her, like, do you feel the same thing? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. So that was like the only other time, you know? It's like, as soon as, and I always tell her, you know, like, man, that kind of bond that my wife and I have, like, man, we're always going to be together. And, you know, like, we both shared something that we, yeah, it was crazy. It was awesome. So I think that was the other time. It's just me and my wife actually like bonded to the point where we like fused together, like our souls kind of like combined.
Do you think you guys are twin flames and soulmates?
Yeah, definitely. We well, you'll be seeing her soon anyway when you come. So, you know, like her demeanor and my demeanor, how we are together, we definitely yeah, we're pretty much the same people. We have different experiences, and we met kind of like a bit unconventionally, but you know, we definitely like are soulmates, and yeah, it's a really cool experience. Like, especially that she experienced it too, man. You know, like, her background is that she's a scientist. So, like, as a job, she's a scientist. So you know how like pretty much grounded scientists are, and for her to be able to experience something that I could experience too, and we were both experiencing the same thing together, that was just, you know, like, for her, that blew her mind, and I was there, and my mind too.
If you never had these OBEs, where do you think you'd be?
um, either what I saw would have happened, maybe, or still down in Wellington. I was not that naughty, but I was definitely naughty enough to have gone to jail. So that could have been my fate.
Have you had any negative or positive side effects from these OBEs?
I think at first, when I didn't know what was going on, I thought that I was in some way, shape, or form damaged from it. And so I, you know, even though like that was a ride, living my life after it and having to figure out what had happened, yeah, that was a really big journey in itself too, because like I wasn't out of the woods yet, you know, like even though like I had experienced it, I still had to really keep putting my feet forward and keep going, and then at the same time keep growing and learning too. So, you know, I realized that you're never too old to learn. And even then, because I thought, you know, when you're young and you're in your 20s, you just think that you're immortal and that I'm done. I've reached my peak, you know. So like after it, realizing that I was still at level 0, you know, that journey just to level 1 is even still massive, you know.
Did you acquire any new abilities or skills from your OBE? Example, heightened senses or anything like that?
Definitely. I was able, what's the word? I was able to be like a seer in tohus. So I was able to see things before it happened. And I knew, like, I'll give you an example. I used to work in forestry, and I was in the van with the boys going to the site one morning. And on the way, I imagined while I was in the car, I was thinking, and it was a weird thought. I thought, oh, it would be funny to see a cow with graffiti on it. Like I just thought, you know, like if someone, because you know, like you see cows that have got, it's been tagged like with spray paint with a little mark on it. So I just thought, oh, I wonder if someone like did a big tag on the cow too, you know. And I thought that on the way to work. And after work, we were going back, and I saw a cow that had graffiti on it. And when I saw it, then I got the tohu. The tohu told me that I was on the right path. At that point in my life, I was really contemplating whether or not I liked the job. And so at that time, I was thinking, oh, I might do something else. But then I got a tohu. And as soon as I saw that cow, instead of going, hey, I was thinking about that this morning, the tohu came to me and it basically said, in my consciousness, it just said, you're on the right path. And so as soon as that happened, I thought, oh, okay. So whenever I make a choice, universe or God in a way is always going to tell me, yeah, you're on the right path, you know? And it doesn't happen anymore because I'm probably on that right path now, you know? Like I'm on that, I suppose, the right waka and going in that direction that I need to go. But I used to do, after that, I used to always get tohu and signs and things to keep me in that good path, you know, a path where I'm helping other people. And at that time, one of my bros that I was working with, he was like a jailbird, so he was always he was in prison. He's the same age as me, but he'd been in prison for like half of like the majority of his adult life. Like he was, you know, a juvie in like juvenile prison, and then like in remand from like 17 to 18, punished as an adult for charges that he committed when he was young. So he ended up, and he was in jail for quite a long time. And so his first job out of prison was working in the bush. And me and him worked together. And because both of us, we had, well, you know, in a way, I feel like he had a better upbringing than me. Like I grew up in just outside the hood, but my school was in the hood, and I was exposed to all of that kind of gang life and stuff like that. Even though my family my immediate family, my cousins and stuff, I got cousins in both sides of the gangs and stuff, but I was able at that time to still be me, still be really like just down to earth and help some of those boys stay out of trouble, and they would say things, I want to do this and I want to do that, and I'll just tell them, no, man, the reality sucks if you do that. And so those tohus that were always, telling me you're on the right path, it wasn't about me and what, bettering my life or getting paid and stuff like that. It was more like I'm on that path to be present for other people to help them, And so I think that's all my tohus have always been. It's just to be there, be able to help other people. And
what do you think is your mission journey here on Earth at this time?
well, my main mission is to be a good husband and to be a good person for myself, and to look after my family. I'm in a position now where I can just be there for other people. And when baby comes, is to protect her and to teach her everything, teach her all the right things. And I have a path that at the moment I'm on I suppose, like a combination of becoming like an explorer and then like a type of archaeologist in a way. And that path is going to lead myself and my wife and, our kids down a new path, like how our ancestors hopped on waka and traveled around. Eventually I'll be doing the same. And I'm very interested in ancient history, and especially history that's been erased from the powers that control the world. And so the background on this picture is an example of that ancient world, and my heart is going towards that now, to uncover and help other people around the world, work with other people, and come to this point where we're going to go to different countries and find out the secret of ancient civilizations that have taken place on Earth, and why they were erased from history of time. And a lot of people now are waking up. I certainly have woken up even more. And a lot of my closest friends and stuff that know that they've seen me change and into this new person. And in a way, weirdly enough, it's like, I wanted to get really into Te Ao Māori, but now I'm like in Te Ao. It's like gone global now, like it's like, oh no, our people are all good. We've got thousands, we got millions of Māori people now. They're all gonna branch out all over the world. Don't know how many Māori people there are actually on Earth, but like my time now is just to teach my kids the tikanga and our ancestors, but at the same time go forward and see what else is there in the world and who our ancestors really mingled with. And like to feel like they just went from just around the islands and stayed in Te Moana Nui a Kiwa. Come on, they would have gone to, like they've talked about how they've gone to South America and the Kumara from that place. And we see like a lot of tribes in British Columbia, the Haida Kauai, if you've ever heard of them before. how their ancestors left Hawaii and settled in British Columbia, and then you've got our Taiwanese cousins, and we've got our Melanesian cousins and PNG and the Solomon Islands. So awesome to see that our ancestors, we definitely got around.
Certainly did. There is a lot of history with our ancestors, and where we came from and where our ancestors migrated from, where they stopped off, and a whole bunch of other things like Atlantis, Lemuria. There's just so much to go and research about, even Sumeria, Mesopotamia, and a whole bunch of those different things, which is why I love traveling around the world. I love exploring these different places, and you've seen my vlogs on my YouTube channel. I just had this passion to travel and go out. I went to Egypt and all these other places like that, and now, just similar to you, I also have had that OBE, which has put me onto another path. And from there, I've kind of rebirthed, and I'm just connecting with what I call the Eternal Supreme. Some people call it God or whatever. And, it's just giving me these like little missions and things to do. And I'm feeling them through what I, term the wairua, or, intuitive knowing is another word that people use. And now it's telling me I'm getting these sort of feelings of writing a book about my experiences. And so, what I want to ask you, would you consider writing a book about your OBE experiences?
Yeah, I haven't thought about it. I was thinking setting up like a YouTube page and kind of doing the vlogs and trying to, I suppose, be another person there that other people, like other Māori people or anyone in general, just comes across and has those curiosities, that they're not alone. Because that's something, I suppose, when you experience something when you're young, you don't realize that everyone else has experienced those things too in some way, shape, or form. And that, I only thought that the OBE that I experienced was just a trip, and to know that, that it's not, and that that heaps of people all over the world have experienced different forms of either near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences, and hearing about our ancestors too, about like an experience that an example is Hotu Matua from Rapa Nui in Easter Islands, and how his tohunga was able to leave his body and fly to Rapa Nui to be able to go back to the Marquesas Islands, I think. I may be wrong, but I think it's the Marquesas Islands, and Nuku Hiva. At the time, it was just called Hiva. Or Kiwa, I think, if you were to translate it to Reo, to Te Reo Māori, is that it's Kiwa. And his tohunga was able to leave his body and find Rapa Nui, and then tell Hotu Matua, it's over there. So, to know that our ancestors had the juice to do the same, like we come from them, and it's just like, wow. But I don't know if it's like, it'd be wrong to say, because people being spiritual and being connected to the wairua and to Taio, like it's might be a bit unfair to say that we might have an advantage, given that, like we're really, even though we're a really old civilization or a really old culture, we're very quite connected still. Like our country was only I suppose, brought into the rest of the world via England only, 200-300 years ago. And prior to that, we were still, the Tohunga Suppression Act was only, 100 and so years ago. And to stop our, I suppose, the atelier of our culture, the experts, all that did was put us in incubation. So we're still connected to Te Taio, and seeing the next generation and seeing all forms of art evolve, and seeing that we are really dominating in, I suppose, the epistemological worldview of the rest of the world, and how interconnected we all are now, and that we're using the foreign technology and we're using everything. It's awesome to see that.
It totally is awesome to see that, and I'd love to talk to you in another podcast about that kind of stuff, but also about humanity's awakening right now and the current world events that's going down now that the mainstream media don't even cover. I'd love to talk to you about that in another upcoming podcast. And as we head into our last few questions, I just want to ask, are there any upcoming events, projects, or anything you're working on you want to share with us?
Yes, actually. I just created a new account, and I'm gonna roll with Eternal Kurt, because Eternal, originally I wanted to be Eternal K, but that's already taken. And so Eternal Kurt, and I want to stay my name and still be me. And so, yep, that's definitely coming out. Will be lots of vlogging and lots of pictures, and hopefully like-minded people will be my friend, and hopefully I can learn from other people also, or I will learn from other people. I'm so grateful to be talking to you, and you giving me that platform to be able to, I suppose, put my heart on and put my mana, being able to share with other people. And I hope, it is an inspirational thing. We can, in the future, network again. And, if I do a podcast, that I'll be interviewing you.
Most definitely. I'd love to come on a podcast when you do your one in the future. And do you reach out and respond to people? And if so, which avenues are best for people to reach you? Example, people might want to email you to ask you questions about your experience, or you might get other interviews as well.
So it'll be my Instagram tag. So it'll be at Eternal_Kurt. And so, yeah, hit me up on there and I'll see if I can help.
And can you give us one last positive message?
Live your life 100%. We don't know what's happening. We don't know what's happening next year. We don't know what's happening in 2 years. So all those opportunities that are always coming to everybody, take them, and really take them. If your job's on the line and you need to go somewhere else, do that. If you need to connect with your family, do that. You can always make money, but you can't take money with you when you die. You can make heaps of money on this earth. Just do what you want to do. Because how fragile everything is right now, really stand up and open the door and just appreciate everything. Because in a way, we are all eternal in a way.
Thank you very much, Eternal Kurt. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and for you coming along and expressing and sharing your experiences with us. And I'm hoping along the way people will see this podcast, get some inspiration, or maybe even help them with some letting go that they may need it at the right time as part of their life journey as well. And just a whole lot of positive vibes coming from this chat. And I would love to thank you so much for coming along and sharing. And as I say, have a great life, not just a great day.